For more on this, I'm joined by Rudie Heyneke, a portfolio manager at the organization Undoing Tax. Rudie, thanks so much for speaking to us. Now, do you believe that the NPA has sufficient evidence to successfully prosecute?
Good afternoon, Hugo. Yes, I do believe that. We have been in the past also working close together with the NPA, and on this specific matter, I do believe that they do have sufficient evidence to get a successful prosecution.
Now, this is a case of high-profile individuals certainly coming out of state capture. Are we seeing a huge amount of progress with the NPA and possible prosecutions in other cases?
Yes, obviously this was the second one for this week. The other one on the Optimum and Korenfontein rehabilitation funds, where Gupta Associates also appeared in court. And I hope that this is, the start of the promised seminal cases that the NDPP was talking about, and that we will see more arrests in the next 6 months, as promised.
Is this a case of the country's law enforcement agencies being bolstered, would you say?
Well, one must, look at it from another angle as well. The Zondo reports came out, especially on Transnet and Eskom, other sectors as well. And I think that assisted the investigating units, with their work, and also for the prosecutors to make decisions on prosecution. So hopefully, with the aid of the Zondo reports, they will move faster.
Now, if the NPA is successful in its bid to prosecute, and obviously win the prosecute, get some conviction, will this give credence to the inquiry into state capture?
Well, I do believe it will, but we must also remember that, all the work cannot and should not be done by the NPA. There's other recommendations by the Chief Justice as well that we must look at, especially, with the inquiry into state capture. And one must look at the report, as a unit and what he is recommending. I think, we saw that high-profile politicians were implicated, and the findings on them by the judge were quite scathing. So it's not only for the NPA to act, but I think that government, the president, parliament should also come to the party and look at the recommendations of the Chief Justice and act accordingly.
Now, there have been numerous conversations, obviously many individuals accused of graft. I mean, the amount of graft that we've seen in the last 2 years is unimaginable. And there's been huge conversations around political will and the absence of it. Is there a shift in your perspective?
Well, I do hope so, that we see this shift now. One must keep in mind, if we talk about political will, we must remember that at the end of the year there is a big ANC conference where new leadership will be selected. So I think that also plays a role in political will and the pace of moving forward with these cases. But South Africa, the citizens of the country cannot be held ransom and asked to wait for an ANC conference to take place before they move forward with arrests, prosecutions, further investigations, etc. The time to act is now, because I do believe that state capture or corruption is still alive and well in this country, and we cannot wait for events like that to take place before we move forward.
Rudie, are you suggesting that part of the agenda or the reason that we are seeing these charges being proffered against these individuals is because certain people are looking for favour come the ANC conference?
Well, one can only look at, the recommendations that the Chief Justice made. And, this was not recommendations or suggestions made by anybody else than the Chief Justice, who I think who is very experienced in handling these matters. So we can just have a look at all the high-profile politicians still sitting in positions, still in cabinet, still in senior positions, in the ruling party, still in parliament. And I do believe that if some of them are removed now, it will have an influence on the conference at the end of the year. But I must emphasize, and like I said before, we cannot wait for conferences to move ahead and to fight corruption in this country.
Now let's look at Shamila Batoy, the head of the NPA, and many a time she's talked about lacking capacity in order to do her job to the best of her ability, or for the NPA to do the job that it's required to. Has there been a shift? Has there been some support coming through to that office, GC?
Earlier this week, Minister Ronald Lamola, in an interview or in a webinar at the University of Pretoria, said that they have capacitated or they have, pushed up the budget for the NPA, and so there's not a need for more money. I think it is now for the NDP to get the right people and to move forward with the cases and get the hawks on board to speed up the investigations. But one don't want to see, a docket that's not really complete, before court. So, but I do believe that the capacity and the budget is there now to move forward rapidly.
Rudie Heyneke, Portfolio Manager, Transport and State Capture, Outer Organisation Undoing Tax Abuse. We thank you for your time this afternoon.